Welcome to the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy walking tour of Hoyt Lake and Ure Delaware Park. This is presented by M&T Bank, and I'm Jim Mendola, the volunteer historian for the Olmsted Parks. It's hard to believe, but this was once the busiest entrance to the park. For the first 4 or 5 years of the park, unless you owned a horse or a carriage, you couldn't access the park very easily. The closest trolley stop was at Niagara and Forest, which would have been over a mile away, and with the heavy clothes and children and picnic baskets, it would have been a very difficult trip. But in 1880 or so, the trolley lines extended up Delaware to Forest and up Forest to Delaware. So there were 2 lines coming in from downtown. The trolley fare was only a nickel for adults and a penny for children. So the people that lived downtown, and especially in the tenements, could well afford to come down and spend a day at the park. But by the time cars became popular and there was parking space around the park, this entrance became less and less used, and it's just virtually abandoned at this time. Now we're into the Rumsey story of the park. And the Rumsey Shelter, which looks like it's been here forever, was actually built in the 1930s under a Work Progress Administration grant and recently restored by the Olmsted Parks Conservancy. In 1885, Frederick Law Olmsted wrote to the Common Council and the Parks Commission recommending that they extend the beach bank picnic grounds, which were getting overcrowded in the park. They turned to Dexter and Bronson Rumsey, who owned the land, to see if they were willing to sell. So over my left shoulder are 12 acres that Rumsey brothers sold to the city for $35,000, which was the equivalent of $800,000 today. They were pretty wise real estate brokers. At one time, 42 square miles were the extent of Buffalo, and the Rumseys owned 23 square miles. They also founded M&T Bank, so even among Buffalo millionaires, they were super rich. So they established athletic fields, separate ones for boys and girls, where the soccer field is now. And then in 1905, after Dexter Rumsey had died, his children donated a further 10 acres over my right-hand shoulder and built Rumsey Road at their own expense. But that was pretty smart too, because now they had land facing the park and they could get premium prices for it. So they didn't lose any money on the deal. That was the last expansion for the park, and now it was complete. The Rumsey section of the park contains some of the oldest trees in the park. The maples, oaks, sycamores date to at least the 1880s and maybe before. And they're just huge, beautiful, amazing trees. This is the Ivy Bridge. It was built in 1885-86 after the purchase of the Rumsey land. The stone is all from a quarry in another part of the park that was right next to the Parkside Lodge. For years it was supplied stone to the park and had a huge stone crushing machine for gravel and larger stones to use in the park. Was dismantled about 1900, and the stones that were in the quarry and on the foundation of the rock crushing machine were used to create the Roman ruins in the Buffalo Zoo. So this hillsides here was all sculpted as part of the original park engineering. If you had come here before the park was built, this would have been a ravine with a 20-foot drop. So William McMillan and Olmsted constantly molded the park into shapes that were convenient for people to travel along. So actually the whole park pretty much is an artificial creation. Now, as part of the making the park seem like it was a mature pleasure ground that was there forever, Olmsted would be able to move trees at 20 inches diameter on horse-drawn carts. They would just pull the tree up in a special way not to damage it so much, and could transport it to other sites. They also had these insanely long ladders to trim the trees so that they would look more pleasant for people to pass by.